I'm Iain Duguid, and this is the Work Experience Kid podcast. And we're starting off a little meta. The goal is to help you explore a new career. You could be starting out, making a career change, or you could be just curious. The goal here is to speak to people who work in different industries and who could possibly be working in your dream job. And because I don't know if I want to continue in my career or move into something else, I'll act as a work experience kid to see if that new career is for me. And if I find the right job, this could be a very short podcast series. Now that brings me to introduce the first guest on the Work Experience Kid podcast, Ed Cowlishaw. Thanks for helping me out here, Ed.
Iain, no problems whatsoever. It does feel weird calling you Iain because I've always called you Skipper.
Yeah, we met a couple of decades ago now, like almost 20 years or something.
It's nearly 20 years. Unbelievable.
I was like 17 and I definitely didn't look like an Iain because Iain's a middle-aged man.
You finally
name,
got there, you've earned your stripes,
you've
you've earned your name, but I'm still going to call you Skipper. So we should explain, shouldn't we, why I call you Skipper?
Yeah, go on.
All right, we're sitting around this round table. It's like the Knights of, I don't know, Richard I or something along those lines there. Iain's on one side of the desk, I'm on the other. This motley crew of budding, I don't know, broadcasters and media executives of the future. We're sitting there in TAFE one day and we're going around learning each other, and I think we were coming off a bloke called King, and so we started calling him Kingy, and then you said, I'm Iain and I was captain of my school or something along those lines there, and I've gone, nah, you're a skipper.
And it's stuck with me until now when I've gone with Iain.
Great story, and I hope you enjoyed that and stay with the podcast. It gets better from here.
Well, I have a podcast now, Ed.
I know, it's incredible.
Now what do I do?
Well, what do you want to do? Why am I here?
Well, I have an idea of what I want this podcast to be and the general structure, but I think you're a good person to have on to help me develop this into something that people might enjoy. Because a bit about you, Ed. Currently, you're the breakfast radio host on M Gippsland. That's in Victoria. We've all listened to breakfast radio, but we might not have given it too much thought. At this part of the conversation, maybe you can just give us a quick overview of what you do every day, like, at a macro level.
Okay, I'll break it down for you. So I'll use my day for today. Up at 3:30 in the morning, have a look at the social pages. I see what's trending. Then I go across to ABC News and other news sources around the world to see if there's anything major that's breaking. If not, we go back locally. This is a fully local show that I do. But if there's something really major breaking, I've got to be across it so we can cover that on the show. Okay. I'm a solo operator as well. I don't have a co-host. So everything I do, I'm a presenter and producer. I organise the interviews probably a day or maybe 2 or 3 days in advance. Depends on how hard the guests are to be. If they're in the AFL realm, I have to jump through 5,000 hoops just to get a comment from someone from a club. But if it's a local perspective on things, usually it's a 48-hour to 24-hour turnaround on interviews. We go live, we do pre-records in the mornings after the show, and we have a damn good time between 6 to 9 each and every day with music and talk back, and it's a lot of fun talking local stuff here in Gippsland, enjoying it.
Okay, there's one thing from what you've just said there, and that's that you do have a busy day. The 3:30 would really annoy me. I've gotten up at 4 o'clock a couple of times, and I couldn't think of anything worse. I do deserve some sort of medal, but what has stood out for me is the interview situation. And I mentioned earlier that I want to give a job a go, and in some industry that will be quite difficult, but in others it might be a little bit easier to have a crack at that. I think by doing this episode, I'll be dipping my toe in the radio announcer space, and maybe by the end of it, I can showcase some skills that your boss needs to see to, I don't know, let me fill in for a week while you're on holidays or something.
Yeah, good luck. No, there's plenty of options, and I look forward to this. To hear that you want to be broadcasting Skipper Q, I love it. I love it.
I'll take that as your boss will probably have a hard time saying no after he hears this episode.
That's right, Mel. I need a co-host. Let's get Skipper on.
Lovely. So let's work out some skills in the radio podcast Venn diagram that pretty much overlap. I'll then go away and come back and do a proper podcast episode with you. Then you can judge me and see how I've done. Then we can send to your boss and they'll get a job. I was thinking what skills I should hone for this podcast. You've mentioned interviews, which is really, I guess, integral for this sort of thing. Anything else sticking out for you?
Oh, you got to do your research and prep. So this is the other reason why I'm up at 3:30 in the morning.
Do I have to get up at 3:30?
Well, I do, right? So I do prep beforehand. So it's a normal day for me from 3:30 through to around about 11 o'clock in the morning, maybe 11:30. But it's shift work, so you get used to that. But your prep time is beforehand on the immediacy. That's the best thing about radio or broadcasting, is that it's immediate medium, so you can just go straight into it. But you got to prep, you got to do your research. So with your interviews, you got to know what you're talking about. You can't fluff your way through this. But you also got to know the purpose of the interview. Who's the interview for? Who's your audience? What type of interview is it, Skipper? Is this an interview where it's going to be a sensitive issue, where you're talking about personal content? Is it going to be an accountability interview where you're talking to a politician and making sure that they cover up the potholes on the highway as you're travelling to work? Is it going to be a fun interview with a musician or a sports person, an informative interview there? So there are many different types that you need to know what you want to do first, or what you want to get out of the interview before you even think about picking up the phone and having a yarn with someone.
Okay, maybe I should have done it beforehand. All right. Okay, well...
5 Ps, mate. Prior preparation prevents poor performance.
What is it, the 5 Ps or the 6 Ps? This is good for an interview. Anyway, we'll... all right, so we've got the research of the person that I'm interviewing. I guess from my point of view, what the purpose is and what sort of questions I would want to ask to sort of lead them down a right path, maybe get the listeners the answers that they want from various questions.
Also with those questions, so you write out your questions, you've done your research, you're formulating your questions of the who, what, where, why, whens, but also some telling questions. And as I said, it depends on the type of interview that you want to do. But with your questions, if you know your talent, but then have a question to follow up, because you might go down a rabbit warren. One question might lead to another as well. So be prepared to not be too structured with your interview questions, because the interview might go down a different path that you may not have expected as well.
Good to improvise. Okay. Do you have a favourite kind of question that I could steal?
No, I don't, because every interview is different. So I try not to be too generic with them, because I'm doing interviews every day. If I keep asking the same questions to different people every day, it gets a little bit boring. So with my research, if I'm on socials and things like that, I generally try to have a curly one up my sleeve. So I pride myself on the unexpected question, something that might take them off their chosen field. So they might be a cricketer, or they may be a politician, they may be a performer. But they might have another interest, which is completely off track of what they do for a living. And that adds a little bit of colour and may take the conversation in another area. So I think if you've got a question that may bring some levity to the interview, or a smile, or maybe bring the audience into something that they didn't know before, it really adds to the quality of the chat.
So for you as a radio broadcaster, I should ask you about implications of tariffs and World War III?
Well, is that something of interest for me?
I don't know, but...
see, this is the thing. You've got to know your audience. So
it definitely doesn't help us learn what a broadcaster does it?
We want to help people get jobs here, not put people on the spot. But at the same time, are they going to learn something from it? Yeah, exactly. So knowing your audience, what your audience gets out of it, asking the right questions, and enjoying the process. That's what it's about. So I wish you luck.
Oh, thank you. And then I had another thing here, like structure. Do you have any thoughts on how I should structure the pod? I did say that I wanted to have sort of like an interview up the top, learning about what people do, and then maybe give it a go. But is there any sort of structure maybe throughout the interview that you can see might help?
I think structuring up, knowing the time frame that you want, but also not adhering to that time frame, because sometimes you may go on a wonderful conversation somewhere and it may be terribly interesting. Others might be not so much, and that's where the editing process comes in. Every podcast should be very conversational, not rigid, and enjoy a chat, really. People want to have the company, the environment of people having a yarn with one another, whilst also maybe learning something like this podcast here, or telling a story, or being entertained, and going along those tracks.
Okay, it was all quite helpful, and you just told me that I'm going to have to learn how to edit well. All right, we'll have to get someone else on to see if I can get a hand there. Any other quick advice for me?
Just enjoy the process. Understand your subject, get into it, and Yeah, I think that's the best thing about it. Doing your research, knowing your questions, knowing your talent, not being overawed. There's the other thing, not being overawed by your guest. Because sometimes if there's a little bit of celebrity status on there, or maybe someone that you've looked up to or admired, don't let the star factor get in the way of a good yarn as well. You're the one that's holding the interview. You're the one that is competent enough to do the interview. Enjoy the chat. Don't get flustered.
Oh, well, thanks, Ed. Give me a week. I'm going to work on those things. Maybe this should be called episode 0.5. And we'll talk about life as a breakfast radio host in episode 1 proper.
Sounds good. Can't wait to chat, bud.
All right, speak to you then.